Before the first kingdom rose, before the first war was ever fought, the ground itself learned to drink blood. It began with a brother, and it began with a choice. This is the story the world has tried to forget. The story of Cain, the first man to kill, and the bloodline that never stopped killing. You are watching the Bible Stories portal, where ancient scripture meets living truth. Stay to the end, because what began in Eden is still happening right now. In the days when memory still smelled of a garden and the ground remembered a voice, a family learned to live east of what they had lost. They sowed and reaped among thorns. From dust and sweat came two sons, Cain, the farmer, who wrestled life from the earth, and Abel, the shepherd, who coaxed life to trust him. Years passed, and each brought to the Lord the fruit of his labor. Abel's firstborn lambs burned clean, a fragrance that rose straight into heaven. Cain's harvest smoldered, heavy smoke folding back on itself, and the silence that followed became the loudest sound Cain ever heard. Then the voice spoke, not in anger, but in warning. If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin lies at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. Yet jealousy is a quiet visitor. It eats before the meal is served. Cain's eyes turned toward his brother, and love soured into need. One morning, they walked together into the open field. The sky was clear, the air still, and there, where furrows met the horizon, the world learned its first death. Abel's blood darkened the soil. The ground, shocked and silent, carried his cry straight to God. Then came the question that has never stopped echoing, "Where is Abel, your brother?" And the answer that still chills the soul of man, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The voice replied with grief and fire, "What have you done?" The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. "Cursed are you from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive it. You shall be a wanderer and a fugitive." Cain trembled. "My punishment is greater than I can bear." But mercy broke through judgment. "Not so," said the Lord. "Whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken sevenfold." And upon his brow he set a mark, a boundary, a mercy, a mystery. East of Eden he wandered, through lands without names, haunted by the sound of his brother's blood, and the silence of a God who still protected him. In the land of Nod, Cain built a city, walls to contain his restlessness, streets to forget his loneliness. He named it for his son, as though a name could anchor what a soul had lost. From his line came music, metal, and the art of living, but also the seed of violence. The ground had been broken, and something dark began to grow. East of Eden, Cain's descendants multiplied. They learned to shape metal, to draw sound from strings, to build walls, weapons, and words of power. Though they forgot his face, they never forgot his defiance. Jabal pitched the first tents and claimed territories. Jubal discovered rhythm and turned worship into performance. Tubal-Cain forged blades that gleamed like lightning. What Cain began with a blow, his sons perfected with invention. Then came Lamech, seventh in the line, loud, proud, proud of the mark his forefather feared. He sang to his wives, "I have slain a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77. And so vengeance became a song. From his city flowed ambition without restraint. Men conquered and enslaved, mixing brilliance with cruelty, music with arrogance, beauty with blood. The earth filled with violence, and God said, 'My spirit shall not strive with man forever.' Then came the flood, a cleansing of cries too loud to ignore. But even as the waters fell, a fragment of Cain's fire remained. It built Babel's tower, armed Nimrod's hand, and crowned kings who ruled by fear. Empire after empire, Assyria, Babylon, Rome, each carried the same pulse, power without love. And the bloodline of Cain marched on, through swords, through crowns, through centuries. The story of Cain did not die in the wilderness. It evolved. It learned to wear suits, hold offices, and speak in laws. The same spirit that built walls in Nod now builds nations on division. Cain's descendants are no longer traced by name, but by nature. They are the architects of systems that feed on their brothers' sweat. They are inventors of war, who call it peace. They are kings who build altars to power, and call it progress. The bloodline of Cain beats inside the chambers of the modern world. It funds the arms race, profits from famine, turns the poor into data. It kneels at the altar of self, singing hymns of success, while the earth still weeps for Abel. From the killing fields of history to the glass towers of today, the same pattern repeats. One man gains the world, another loses his life unseen. The curse of Cain is not ancient, it is current. It powers economies that thrive on conflict, media that trades truth for outrage, and religions that preach grace, while practicing envy. Yet even here, in the glow of screens and the roar of engines, mercy still calls. The voice that spoke to Cain still speaks to us. Where is your brother? It asks presidents and pastors, CEOs and citizens alike. It asks not for guilt, but for awakening. Because the mark can still be broken. The blood of Christ still cries louder than Abel's. It doesn't call for vengeance, it calls for redemption. Until man learns again to look upon his brother and see himself, the story of Cain continues. But the day will come when the last city of Cain will fall, and the kingdom of peace will rise from its dust. However, the ground that once drank Abel's blood has never forgotten the sound. For ages it groaned beneath empires and kings, beneath boots and chains and cries of the innocent. But there came a day when the earth trembled for a different reason. On a hill called Calvary, another son lifted his face to heaven and bore the weight of every brother's hatred. The blood that fell that day did not cry for vengeance. It cried for forgiveness. And heaven listened. The curse of Cain met the mercy of Christ, and mercy did not flinch. Where the first man's hands spilled blood, the second man's hands spilled grace. Where one built cities to forget, the other built a kingdom that remembers. The cross became the new mark, not of exile, but of belonging, not a warning, but a welcome. The Spirit of God began to till the hearts of men, planting peace where violence once grew. Forgiveness became a revolution, and compassion its greatest weapon. Still, the old mark whispers, and some still choose the way of Cain. Power over peace, pride over mercy. But the tomb is empty, and the ground that held death has yielded life. A day is coming when swords will melt into plowshares, and the soil will no longer drink blood, but rain. The deserts will bloom, and the Judge of all the earth will walk among his creation again. Then the first cry of Abel and the final cry of mankind will meet in one eternal silence, a peace so deep that even the dust will worship. This is the end of Cain's story, and the beginning of every redeemed one. For what began with a brother's blood will end with a brother's love, and the earth, once cursed, will finally rest. If this story stirred you, share it with someone who still believes the world is beyond redemption. Subscribe to the Bible Stories portal for more cinematic journeys through the Scriptures, where ancient truth meets living revelation. Because every story in the Bible is still happening today.